Hello legal hustlers. In this video, we will step back in time to the pivotal case of US vs Susan B. Anthony, a landmark moment in the fight for women's suffrage in America. Case summary. Susan B. Anthony was a prominent American suffragist and activist who played a crucial role in the women's suffrage movement. In 1872, Anthony was arrested and put on trial in the case of US vs. Susan B. Anthony, for the crime of voting in the presidential election, which was illegal for women at that time. Anthony's trial was a landmark moment in the fight for women's rights. She argued that the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, which granted citizenship and equal protection under the law to all persons born or naturalized in the country, included women and therefore entitled them to vote. However, the court disagreed and convicted her of unlawfully voting. Despite the guilty verdict, Anthony was fined $100 but refused to pay, leading to Hunt's decision not to jail her, thus preventing her from appealing to the Supreme Court. Anthony used her trial as a platform to advocate for women's suffrage and equality. Her fearless defense and unyielding commitment to the cause brought national attention to the issue of women's voting rights. The trial of US vs. Susan B. Anthony remains a significant moment in American history, highlighting the ongoing struggle for gender equality and the tireless efforts of individuals like Anthony to advance civil rights and social justice. Questions which can be asked in the exam. First, enunciate the legal arguments put forward by Susan Anthony at her court hearing. Susan B. Anthony's legal arguments at her court hearing centered on the interpretation of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. She argued that as a citizen of the United States, the 14th Amendment granted her the right to equal protection under the law, including the right to vote. Anthony contended that the Constitution's guarantee of equal protection applied to all citizens regardless of gender, and therefore, she should not be barred from voting solely based on her sex. Additionally, she asserted that the 15th Amendment, which granted voting rights regardless of race, further supported her argument for women's suffrage. Despite Anthony's compelling legal arguments, the court ruled against her, maintaining the existing prohibition on women's voting rights at that time. Second, write an essay on Susan B. Anthony. Susan B. Anthony's legal arguments at her court hearing centered on her interpretation of the Constitution, particularly the 14th Amendment. She argued that as a citizen of the United States, the 14th Amendment granted her the right to equal protection under the law, including the right to vote. Anthony contended that denying women the right to vote solely based on their sex was a violation of their constitutional rights. She also referenced the 15th Amendment, which granted voting rights regardless of race, as further support for her argument. Despite Anthony's compelling legal arguments, the court ruled against her, maintaining the existing prohibition on women's voting rights at that time. Third, discuss the attitude of Judge Hunt. Judge Hunt's attitude during Susan B. Anthony's trial was contentious and biased. He showed clear hostility towards Anthony's arguments for women's suffrage, frequently interrupting her and instructing the jury to return a guilty verdict even before the trial concluded. Hunt's prejudiced remarks and actions indicated a lack of impartiality and a predetermined stance against Anthony. His conduct reflected the prevailing societal attitudes of the time, which were largely unsympathetic towards women's rights and suffrage. Despite facing such adversity, Anthony remained steadfast in her convictions, using the trial as a platform to advocate for women's equality and voting rights.
Thank you for watching. We're thrilled to have you here and hope that you find our content informative, engaging, and entertaining. Be sure to like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to join us for further updates.